Hey, Sean Hannity here with a highlight from my radio show today, right here on iHeartRadio. 25 till the top of the hour. Toll free. Our telephone number is 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. So Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma came out with a new report entitled, as part of our ongoing investigation into the abuse and fraud and mismanagement and downright corruption at the VA. His report is entitled Friendly Fire, Death, Delay, and Dismay at the VA. And what he points out in this report is that the problems at the VA extend well beyond long wait lists, and the department is plagued with horrible care for our vets. It has cost up to 1,000 veterans or more their lives, and you, the taxpayers, have been on the hook now for over, just about $1 billion so far in malpractice settlements since the beginning of the wars in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Now, a lot of this is detailed in the report, but, he talks about the bogus, fraudulent wait lists, scheduling practices, all designed to help managers meet performance goals so that they can get bonuses, et cetera. Anyway, his study, which combines previously reported problems and some new ones, for example, you have one guy that needed mental help and an examination. He had to wait 8 years in New Hampshire. You have a Philly veteran who went for a tooth extraction, and doctors went ahead with the procedure despite his low blood pressure. He had a stroke on the way home, left paralyzed. You got another vet, had annual chest x-rays, but doctors never spotted a growing lesion in his lung. He killed him. And it goes on and on. Now, we have a whistleblower that has come out, scheduling employee for the Phoenix VA system, disclosed that she was the keeper of the secret list. In other words, local vets in Phoenix who waited for months for medical care, and she accused others of altering the records recently to try and hide the deaths of at least 7 vets that were waiting for care. Her name's Pauline DeWinter. She went public as a whistleblower this week, saying that she has spoken to investigators in the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Inspector General about the waiting lists. If there's any good news as it relates to this VA scandal, there are some people in Washington, though, fighting this. And joining us now are 2 Republicans and a Democrat. And joining us are Jackie Walorski of Indiana, Congressman Dr. Phil Rowe of Tennessee, who's been with us before, and Democratic Congressman Tim Walz of Minnesota. And they're all part of the Veterans Affairs Committee. They're all outraged, and they're all working very hard to see that this problem gets solved. And thank you all for being on the program, especially you, Congressman Walz. I mean, a lot of members of your party don't like me.
Well, if you're pointing out things that need to be fixed on, they certainly should. And on this one, there's few things that unite.
Absolutely. I'm on your side. I love what you're doing.
Nothing unites Americans like care for our warriors. And your 2 other guests are colleagues of mine that I admire greatly and have worked to get this right. This thing rises above politics.
Absolutely.
The outrage is pretty universal.
Did you read this report by Coburn? I mean, I read it and I was stunned and shocked and horrified.
Yeah, I did too. And, I mentioned yesterday, I think Dr. Coburn brought up a great point in the start of the conference committee that we really need to diagnose the entire problem before we can prescribe a solution to it. And I think the point is that he brought up, and I have to agree with him on this, for all the good the VA does, I find it hard to trust any of their data now. And I think it's in our best interest to be as skeptical as we possibly can because what's been proven so far on the wait time side of things, I think it's prudent to assume that might be true on other data. And so we can do better. The public demands that we do better, and there are certainly numerous cases of high-quality care in a reasonable amount of time at an efficient rate. The problem is, and I would, your other guests will chime in on this, is that you've got some mid-level folks that not only do not care for on the healthcare side of things, they're there as bureaucrats, and they think they're just going to outlast secretaries, presidents, and members of Congress, and it'll be business as usual. And what I would tell people, and I think what you heard yesterday in the committee is that this is the time for fundamental, drastic change. And we can do that. We can get this right. We can provide quality care to our veterans that they've earned, do it in a cost-effective manner, and use all the resources we have. Public and private sector can work together to get it right.
I want to ask you, Congresswoman, and welcome to the program. Here's what I feel is missing from the beginning. Now, early on, when this story broke, that week, we on the Hannity program, Ainsley Earhart, went out to Phoenix, interviewed people that lost loved ones. We interviewed other people. We got on the story, and here's what I feel is missing, and maybe it's just the way I run my life. I have a sense of urgency about everything. Urgency. I got to be on the air every day, Eastern, 3 to 6, on the West Coast, 12 to 3. I got my work to do, and I've got a time frame to get it done. And the same with TV. It's live TV. You can't stop. You got to keep going. And what's missing here to me is urgency. Now that we know that 1,000-plus people have died, now that we know that they've institutionalized these waiting lists, where's the 1-800 number for those guys that are sick and waiting and need help yesterday?
Exactly.
Why don't we set up an 800 number, an emergency number for these vets that are literally dying now?
Well, that's the thing, Sean, and I appreciate it. And I would just to echo Representative Walz's comments and to answer your question, that we are to the point, I'm to the point personally, sitting on these committees and these hearings, where this information is to the point now that it's not believable. And so as one of the first points I brought up to the VA when they came in to testify, when this whole thing hit the fan, was where is the urgency? They come in, we had Dr. Lynch in this week from the VA, and he comes strolling in, and I looked at him, and there's still no urgency. And I said to him, we've been looking at this for 2 months, day in, day out. The Inspector General comes in and says, this is not going to stop until people go to prison. It's not going to stop until you fire these people. And my question to him just the other night was, where in the world is the urgency? Nobody seems to care about this. It's burning in Congress. It's moving, and we're moving this ball down the road here very, very slowly. But that's my question, and I guess
I would think this,
the president, Sean, is the same thing.
I would think this is
where in the world is the urgency?
I would think this is a moment, and maybe I'm speaking out of hand here. I'm not trying to make this political, Congressman Wells. I want you to know that, but every congressman and woman and every senator from every party ought to get together and stand outside the White House and say, fix this. Have a group of doctors taking calls on a 1-800 number, prioritize those that need immediate attention and care, whose lives may be in jeopardy, those that need to be seen within a week and 2 weeks, and then others that have, things that are not as pressing, they get put down the wait list a little bit, or create a system where they can all walk into their local hospital and get care.
No, and I think, Sean, on that side of it, they are getting that, and I think they certainly have the capacity, and I've been asking for it for years, to use some of the private sector side of things. Dr. Rowe's been there doing the same thing. They'll get that part right, but my fear is, Sean, is that I heard several yesterday folks, Republican and Democrats, say this is an emergency situation, so that means they're not going to pay for the fixes we put in because it's an emergency. I would make the argument, and Dr. Rowe and I have spoken about this, that we need fundamental change. We should not just, you're right, we should triage, get them in immediately. That is happening. But what I'm afraid is them to turn around and say, okay, now it's fixed. It's not fixed. The same thing will replicate itself again. And I think if you take that case that it's all about right now getting them in, which that needs to be done morally, we'll do that. But it's bigger than that. It's cultural. It has to be changed on a broader scale. And I'm just afraid that if we let this moment in time pass, the sense of unity, the outrage the American public feels, and the desire to fix this, that they will miss that. So we have got to be a unified front. This will go amongst administrations. It will go, and it has. It will go no matter who's in the administration. Some of these folks simply have set up their own little kingdoms, and they will continue to operate in that way unless we take it upon ourselves to fix them. So I feel that is happening on this short term, whatever, but I would argue that doesn't fix a systemic problem.
Yeah, I agree. Dr. Rowe, you've been on the program many times, and we've talked a lot about health care in the country. This is a whole different thing, although it should open people's eyes that, just because a government makes promises to people doesn't mean they're ever going to keep them. I mean, if that were the case, our money would be in a lockbox, wouldn't it?
It would be in a lockbox. Sean, this Sergeant Major Walsh, a veteran, we've been to Afghanistan together. I served in the 2nd Infantry Division in Korea in 1973 and 74. And this is embarrassing to me to go home and see my veterans, my colleagues, my brothers that I served with, and to realize this is going on. You've got two problems. One, it's been very eloquently laid out by our two other guests, my colleagues, but one is the backlog. We can knock that out in no time at all. I've already had private sector doctors step up and say, Phil, we will get these veterans in 72 hours. We can take care of this backlog in 6 weeks. If you allow veterans my age who have Medicare to go to a Medicare doctor that takes Medicare, we can fix that problem. The second problem is much, much harder, and that's the culture of the VA. That's going to be much tougher. And I said this in several hearings, is that the question you ask someone who works at a VA campus, who do you work for? And they'll say, I work for the VA. The answer to that question should be, I work for veterans. That's who I work for. And unfortunately, that culture's got to change. It's got to start.
I agree with you, Congressman Rowe, but really shouldn't all the focus now be on the immediate problem of vets immediately needing care?
It should be. There's no question. It should be, Sean. And what Congressman Waltz brought up, he and I talked about on the House floor yesterday, is that we need to have the guts to go up and say, this is an emergency, but we're going to pay for this emergency right now and not put that on the tab for later. And I think we can do that. I think, and look, I think the money's there. This past year, Sean, there was $500 million, right at $500 million unspent the VA had that didn't spend on health care. They have the ability right now to send people out. The year before last, there was over $1 billion left in their account that they didn't spend on health care.
All right, I know Congressman Walz has to go, and I'm sure your Democratic colleagues will beat you up for being friendly with me, but in all seriousness, what I would urge and try and assist in any way I can is that if we can come up with the short-term answer for those that may be at risk of dying now, you know, it's sort of like a boat taking on water. You got to plug the hole. Then you can scoop out the rest of the water. Right now, I feel we've got to plug the hole, and we've got to help those guys that are teetering on the edge here.
Sean, they've got it. They can do fee-for-service, as Dr. Rose said right now. There's providers out there that are willing to do this. I represent the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. They have a Phoenix campus. They said they're ready to go right now. They'll get them in there. We can't do that, and it is all hands on deck. But you know, and I asked the other day, we've got doctors that are medical doctors that are sitting in administrative positions, not seeing patients. They can get out on the floor. Dr. Rowe himself, he talks to people every day who said they're willing to do it. So I think, John, the biggest thing you can do is just keep telling people that's where we're going to go. Keep the country focused on this issue. I don't want them to, they get busy, other things come up, and they lose focus on this. They need to remain focused so we get this right. Because, again, like I said, that unity of there is no Democrat and Republican in this. These are Americans caring for veterans. They want to get it right. Quality, timely care, and it shouldn't be overly expensive. We can do that. And there's lots of folks that want to make it happen. So I think if I could. Are
you sure you're a Democrat? Because you sound so reasonable. Jeez. No, I'm not kidding around about this. All right, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll stay on the issue. I want to thank all three of you, Congressman Walz, Congressman Rowe, and Congresswoman Walorski. Thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, 800-941-SEAN is our number.
For more of the Sean Hannity Show, go to Hannity.com.
Hey, Sean Hannity here with a highlight from my radio show today, right here on iHeartRadio. 25 till the top of the hour. Toll free. Our telephone number is 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. So Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma came out with a new report entitled, as part of our ongoing investigation into the abuse and fraud and mismanagement and downright corruption at the VA. His report is entitled Friendly Fire, Death, Delay, and Dismay at the VA. And what he points out